Christine Huddy, a 35-year-old mother of two, lay in a coma for nearly 7 weeks after a tragic car accident in January. Christy had major internal injuries and a collapsed lung, and because she was without oxygen for so long, there was a limited chance she would survive. That is until one Sunday night in February, Christy made a miraculous recovery and awoke from her coma. But what if she had not? What would her family have done then? Would they have kept her on life support for the rest of her life? Or euthanize her? No. If her family had decided to end her life because she was unresponsive in a coma for 7 weeks, they would have never known if she was going to awake or not. Currently, euthanasia is legalized in 4 states in the United States: Washington, Oregon, Montana, and to a limited extent, Texas. And my partner and I would like to eliminate that option everywhere. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, euthanasia is the act or practice of killing or permitting the death of hopelessly sick or injured individuals in a relatively painless way for reasons of mercy. According to the English jurisdiction of the 1300s, suicide, as well as helping people to kill themselves, also known as assisted suicide, is considered a criminal act. The affirmative side resolves that voluntary euthanasia should be legalized in the United States for the terminally ill. My partner and I feel that because of stories like the one about Christy, euthanasia of any kind, but more specifically voluntary euthanasia, should not be legalized anywhere. The affirmative side might argue that euthanizing someone terminally will end their suffering and pain. While they do make a valid point, the death of the patient will bring even more pain and suffering to the family. Maybe it's a good solution for the suffering patient, or just an easy way out. Euthanasia in many religions demoralizes the value of life and proves that a person feels that their life isn't worth living anymore. Therefore, what is euthanasia? It's just an escape from facing reality and facing one's fears. In addition, ending a life is a huge decision, and people who are terminally ill may be suffering from depression. A patient who is suffering from depression, or a patient who is suffering from a terminal disease, is not in the proper state of mind to make that decision to end his or her life. A terminally ill patient that is most likely suffering from depression automatically feels that their life isn't worth living. According to a cohort study conducted on 138 consecutive cancer patients with an estimated life expectancy of 3 months or less, 32 patients had a depressed mood at inclusion. 30 patients, 22%, made an explicit request for euthanasia. The risk to request euthanasia for patients with a depressed mood was 4.1 times higher than that of patients without a depressed mood at inclusion, thus concluding that depression in cancer patients with an estimated life expectancy of less than 3 months is associated with a higher likelihood to request for euthanasia. In the affirmative resolution, they state that euthanasia would be legalized for the terminally ill. What kind of illness is categorized as terminally ill, and by whose standards are we to follow to make that decision? According to dictionary.com, the definition of terminally ill is when a person is not expected to live more than 12 months. But according to the medical dictionary, terminally ill is the status of a person expected to die within 6 months from a specific condition and thus may need hospice care. As you can see, these 2 different sources have both 2 different definitions and guidelines for what is considered terminal and not. If we don't have a set guideline for what is considered terminally ill, then how will doctors know when euthanasia is appropriate? In addition, euthanasia goes against many different religious beliefs. The Roman Catholic Church is firmly opposed to both suicide and euthanasia as moral options. The Catholic Encyclopedia entry on suicide, published in 1912, describes suicide as a grave sin against God. It gives several reasons for this conclusion. Suicide implies that the person is the master of his or her body instead of God, and also it often leads to failures in parental and social duties or charity towards others. This is contrary to the natural instinct of all creatures for self-preservation. Jews do not interpret the 5th commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," as referring to suicide. However, in Judaism, the preservation of human life is above all most valued. The premature ending of a person's life is completely counter to Jewish perspective, so suicide and euthanasia are unequivocally rejected in modern Judaism. Furthermore, euthanasia goes against the Hippocratic Oath, both modern and original text. The Hippocratic Oath is an oath of ethical professional behavior sworn by new physicians attributed to Hippocrates. In one section of the oath, there is a line that states, I will not give lethal drug to anyone if I am asked, nor will I advise such plan. It seems as if this attitude is still prevalent and that many United States still abide by this Hippocratic oath, banning the use of euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide. However, there are 4 states that clearly do not abide by this oath, and more importantly, there are doctors that do not abide by this mandatory oath that they must take before becoming a doctor. An example of a doctor who went against this oath was Dr. Jack Kevorkian. Dr. Kevorkian had repeatedly ignored this section of the oath dealing with the harming or killing of an individual. His assistance in the suicide of 39 people not only breaks the very backbone of the Hippocratic oath, but also the law. In conclusion, voluntary euthanasia would be utterly wrong and would cause more harm than good. Euthanasia, assisted suicide, murder, all of these words lead to one thing in my mind: wrong. Ethically and morally wrong. My partner and I believe that the euthanasia for the terminally ill should not be legalized because it goes against the Hippocratic Oath, goes against many religious beliefs, and the definition of terminally ill in faith. Put yourself in the shoes of Christy's family. Would you want to see your mother, your sister, your aunt wake up from her coma and live the rest of her life? Thank you. Vote NAY.